And I said, "Well, that's not possible because that is my most important copyright. I got my own publishing company, and that's," I said, "I can't do that." He said, "Well, at least you gotta give us half." And I said, "I can't do that." And so he said, "Well, then we can't record it." Of course, I cried all night about that. But it was only after Whitney recorded, I was so thankful that I had made that choice because I made a lot of money off of Whitney.
He was the king of rock and roll. She was a country girl from the Smoky Mountains in a rhinestone dress. When Elvis Presley asked to record one of her songs, Dolly Parton thought she was dreaming. She adored him, worshipped him. And now he wanted to sing her words? It felt like destiny. But behind the velvet curtain was a deal she didn't expect. A clause, a demand, a moment that tested everything she believed in. And so she said, no. That one word cost Elvis a song that would go on to make hundreds of millions. And it gave Dolly Parton something even more valuable: power. You're watching RetroWaves. Subscribe for real stories that changed music forever. In 1973, Dolly Parton was in turmoil. For 7 years, she'd been performing alongside Porter Wagoner, one of country music's biggest stars. He had discovered her, lifted her up, and placed her on a national stage.
I'd have all the riches, my pockets full of.
But the cost was heavy. Behind the smiles and duets, Porter had grown possessive, controlling. He expected loyalty, submission, and gratitude indefinitely. When Dolly talked about going solo, he resisted, fiercely. So she wrote a song, a breakup song, not for a lover, but for her mentor. If I should stay, I would only be in your way. It was bittersweet, poised, gracious, and it was titled, I Will Always Love You. It wasn't angry, it wasn't dramatic. It was elegant and clear, just like her. She recorded it in RCA Studio B, heart-pounding. The track barely needed polishing. It hit #1 on the Billboard Country chart that summer. It was perfect. And then, it caught the attention of Elvis Presley. Elvis was a god in American music, fading slightly in the 1970s, but still larger than life. He was looking for a ballad, something raw and romantic, something to show that behind the hips and headlines, he could still break your heart, and he found it. When he heard Dolly's song, he wanted it immediately. Colonel Tom Parker, Elvis's notoriously iron-fisted manager, made the call. Elvis wants to record I Will Always Love You. To Dolly, it was like God had dialed her number. She had grown up idolizing him. Her family didn't have money, but they had Elvis records. She once said, I'd lie in bed, close my eyes, and pretend I was singing with him. Now he was about to sing her song. She imagined it all, the velvet vocals, the strings, the crescendo. This wasn't just a duet of fate. It was a spiritual moment, but what came next shattered the dream. Colonel Parker was known for making deals that favored one man, Elvis. He had a standard demand. If Elvis records your song, he gets 50% of the publishing rights. Not just performance royalties, ownership. That meant Elvis and Parker would receive half of all future income from the song, every time it was played, covered, licensed, or streamed, forever. And Dolly? She would lose half of something that was 100% hers. She was stunned. I cried all night, she later said. That song wasn't just a hit, it was my heart. She had written it in one sitting. It was her story, not a product, not a commodity. But in Elvis's world, art was business. Everyone around her told her to do it. You'll be rich. It's Elvis. You say yes. Don't be foolish. She thought about it, long and hard. And then she said no. Imagine this. You're a young woman in Nashville. You're barely 28 years old, and you just turned down the biggest male star on the planet, not because you didn't love him, but because you loved yourself more. Dolly knew what she was giving up. the exposure, the crossover hit, the cultural cachet. But she also knew what she was keeping, her power. The next morning, she picked up the phone and told the Colonel, "I'm sorry. I can't give away my song." There was silence, and that was it. Elvis never recorded "I Will Always Love You." Dolly stood her ground, alone, and history would remember it. Let's pause and imagine what could have been. Elvis, by 1974, was slipping. He hadn't had a massive hit in years. His Vegas shows were doing fine, but critics were losing interest. He was dealing with substance abuse, loneliness, and a sense that his time was fading. What he needed was a comeback ballad, a reminder that Elvis could still make you feel something. And "I Will Always Love You" was exactly that. Had he recorded it, it could have been a global hit, a Grammy winner, a signature late-career anthem. But that door closed, and within 3 years, Elvis was gone. Dolly re-recorded "I Will Always Love You" in 1982 for the film The Best Little Whorehouse in Texas. It hit #1 on the country charts again, making her the only artist to top the charts twice with the same song, but it wasn't done yet. In 1992, Whitney Houston came calling. Actually, it was Kevin Costner, her bodyguard co-star, who suggested the song for the film's soundtrack. Whitney reimagined it. She turned the gentle country ballad into a soul-crushing powerhouse torch song. She didn't just sing it, she owned it. And I will always love you. The note, that note.
And I will.
It became the most iconic vocal moment of the decade. Whitney Houston's version became a cultural earthquake. It sold over 20 million copies, topped the Billboard Hot 100 for 14 weeks, won Record of the Year at the Grammys, became the best-selling single by a female artist in history. And every time that song played, on the radio, in a film, at a wedding, in a commercial, Dolly Parton got paid. She owned 100% of the publishing, not half, not a percentage, all of it. Estimates say she earned $10 million plus from Whitney's version alone. Some say it's closer to $40 million over time. Dolly later said, "Thank God I said no." She didn't blow the money on mansions or jets. She built Dollywood, a theme park that brings in millions a year and employs thousands in her home state of Tennessee. She launched the Imagination Library, donating over 200 million books to children across the world. She funded hospitals, gave to disaster relief, donated to vaccine research during the COVID-19 pandemic, all because she protected a single song, all because she knew her worth. She was no longer just a performer, she was an institution. Ironically, years later, Dolly would become close with Lisa Marie Presley, Elvis's daughter. They shared stories, projects, grief. Dolly never gloated about turning down Elvis. She always spoke about him with admiration, love, and a touch of heartbreak. "I would have loved for him to sing it," she said, "but I don't regret the decision." Because it wasn't about Elvis, it was about survival. It was about owning your work before someone else does. Let's be clear. When Dolly said no, she wasn't just rejecting Elvis. She was rejecting the entire system, one that expected women to be sweet, silent, and grateful. She refused to be passive. She refused to be managed. She refused to sell her voice. And that changed everything. Today, artists from Beyoncé to Taylor Swift talk openly about publishing rights, masters, and creative control. Dolly did it first, quietly, powerfully, with one word. So here's what really happened. Elvis wanted the song. Everyone said she'd be crazy to say no. But Dolly Parton, armed with nothing but talent, conviction, and grit, did the unthinkable. She said no. And because of that word, the King of Rock lost the song that might have revived his legacy. But Dolly, she became a queen of country, a queen of business, a queen of owning what's hers. One decision, one song, one legacy, unshakable.